That's Noah Dillon right there, and this is definitely Chandler Lucy. You know what I mean?
I never wanted to be the greatest band in the world. I wanted to be the greatest me in the world. You're never going to be better than the Velvet Underground. You're never going to be better than the Beach Boys. You're never going to be better than Miles Davis. I know it's not a band. You're never going to be better than, I can name 1,000 bands that are better than us and will always be better than us. It's not about that. It's about something intrinsic. It's about the artistic process and working through the ontology of yourself. That's all it is. And we've been lucky enough to be able to do that and continue to do that with 2 sold-out shows in London, England.
Being the greatest band in the world, do I think we are? I think currently, yeah, I think no one's cooler than us, absolutely. I think a lot of other people out there in the crowd feel the same way, but as Noah said, it's about being the best you that you can be. And I think we're pretty, for the most part, pretty effective at it because, you know, I think being polarizing is a pretty good indication that you're doing something, you know what I mean?
Interesting thing about the Hellp is that we're like a legacy act, legacy underground act. I don't know if that's ever even existed before, because by the nature and definition of underground, it's kind of like you had your little moment for a year or two and then you're off the map. But we've been on the map on the underground for like 10 years, so we have legacy underground songs that we're performing at our peak and our prime. So it's a very odd playfulness that people get to experience. LL was a kind of an exercise in modernity and like of the now sounds and proving ourselves that, you know, it's like the champ. To beat the champ, you got to knock him out, and we're kind of the champ of that sound at the time, and everyone else was coming up to that sound, so we had to prove and get in the ring that we can still go toe-to-toe and do it well. And I think we proved that. That was with LL, and then Riviera, that was much more of a continuation of an EP we had called Enemy, which in my mind is like the true sound of the Hellp in what we are now, and so that was an extension or a brother or something like that. Oddly enough, it didn't make it more. It wasn't more fun to make. It was just as stressful. But you'd think it'd be more fun. Riviera came into it with the process and the idea that everything had to be restrained, and so there was no frivolity and there was no expectation that the song could all of a sudden blow up into this like psychotic mastery, which sort of happened on Meridian. I was hesitant to let it go there, but that's kind of what the song needed, and that happened only once really in the record. So
Yeah, no, same page. We were pioneers of the new blossoming electronic music wave, however you want to define it. Sure, yeah, Crystal Castles, all this stuff existed before us, but you can check the scoreboard. Nobody was doing it when we were doing it, and everybody that started doing it after us, they were at our shows, they were wide-eyed in our shows, and they were shocked. They were shocked they could be at Mercury Lounge in New York City and see a sold-out show of 2 guys on stage with synthesizers, with a delay pedal sounding like Suicide and Crystal Castles at the same time, or whatever you want to compare it to. I don't think it sounds like either of those things, but that's what a layman would refer to as. I would want that to be remembered like that. It'd be like, all these fucking acts that you think are cool, that are bigger than us, maybe rightfully so. Maybe they're bigger because they're more contemporary. Maybe they're better at making little songs. Maybe they're a little bit more media trained than us. Maybe they made more music than us. Not really my prerogative to think about those kind of things, but they wouldn't be here without us. And that's how I want it to be remembered.
It's almost like deja vu. I think that's why I have deja vu a lot on stage, and I think that's probably why. It's because it's like this thing that's been going on for so long. But when you play in LA, where we live, it feels like you're going to the grocery store almost, and you can't, at least for me, you can't quite convince yourself of the character that you need to be on stage or just in general. But if you're in Prague or Latvia or Berlin or wherever, it feels like you're so far away from the person that you think you are, or the expectations that are placed upon you. give the people what they want, but not too much.
By the fifth song, it's like people are losing their minds, and it's like, you know, you haven't even heard Too Neurotic yet, or SSX, or Caustic, or whatever, you know.
If the character is too lofty, then people can see that dissonance and it's cosplaying. But if that character is actually close enough to you, then you can, you know, you work and you sacrifice and you become closer and closer and closer to that thing until you congeal, and then you're one with it. And that's who you are. And that's what growing up was all about, I think. You know, the disillusionment and the tension between A and B, who you want to be and who you are. And some people struggle with their whole life. Some people are lucky enough to get it early. We didn't get it early. Like, that's why we're in a band. It's because, like, the artistic process allows you to work through these sorts of questions in real time, and unfortunately many of the times in front of a spectacle, the spectacle, one of the only external spectacles that truly exist, because the spectacle now is usually internal. You know, we're all the masters of our own little universe, so fandom has become something unique and different as opposed to what it used to be. So yeah, it's a unique position Chandler and I are in, being able to work through these issues, but also at the same time, we kind of look like fools, you know, because you say things that maybe, whatever, don't, it is what it is. Bosnia. Which honestly was so funny that is funny to people, because it's just the truth. We look for these specific type of genes, and they just so happen to be in like Lithuania, Bosnia, and some parts of Italy, and it's like, well, that's what it was, so that's why he said it. It wasn't even trying to be funny.
This is one of the pairs right now. This is it. These were from Bosnia. They're from Bosnia. Nobody knows what the fuck they are. Sorry, they could probably find out what they are by like seeing me in person, but they will never know what fit this is, and that's what matters. I recently saw an AI grok comment said, oh, the whole thing, and it wrote this whole thing about me and like the Hellp and like and I was just like, wow, we fit that algorithm. I mean, how you dress is, I think if you're doing it right, it's a direct reflection of what your lifestyle is, as opposed to what, you know, as opposed to a costume. But it's like when you think about, I'm talking about, like, you know, it's not just that we're musicians, quote unquote, or artists or anything like that, or rock and roll stars or whatever. It's just, this is like kind of what we were born to wear. And also, everything in the world begins as LARPing. If you want to be a musician, you want to be a photographer, you want to be an artist, you want to be a director, you want to be an actor, all this stuff. When you first start doing it, you're not that. Eventually you will be that, but it always begins as pretending to be something that you're not. I
think it's kind of like looking at a new bronc in the corral, and you're supposed to break it, and it's bucking around, and you take a look at, sometimes look at these horses, and if they're too kind of feral, they just let them go and be wild horses. And I think they're like, these guys can't really be broken, I don't think. So they're too old to be broken, whatever it is, they let us out to pasture, and like, we're jumping around in the desert, you know, some people are watching us.
I would think, I think for us, I would think that media training would be akin kind of to like, you know, trying to train someone to be a Jedi that isn't like a toddler, you know what I mean? Like, you do it to Anakin, he's only what, 7, you know what I mean? But fool becomes Darth Vader, he gets too emotional, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like with us, like, we would just end up being very bad Jedis, and I'm going to the dark side or something if they gave us the media training, you know what I'm saying?
I think we're very culturally important. I think what we've contributed is undeniable, and I'm proud of that, and I know it's true. No matter how much people want to say, you know, Unk is talking again or whatever the fuck. Like, I don't really care, because what have they ever done? Probably nothing, and it's okay, because they have time to do things, and also people's worth isn't quantified fully in what they've contributed. That's only in a Western society, you know.
Any courses like doing drugs, stoning water, and you swear them blood. How did you come up with that lyric?
It's so funny that no one has ever asked that. That's actually insane that no one, I always wonder, there's certain questions I'm like, why has no one ever asked these things? Because clearly that's it's always the most memorable line, and the most, except for now, I think it's the la 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 line, which I didn't come up with, but before that it used to be that line for sure. So it's based off a Salvador Dali painting, Honey Sweeter Than Blood, and he drew it, and it was early on in his, when he was somewhat of young, it was like 28 or 29, I think, and he painted it for his mistress or lover. And I saw it I was at a Toshin sale in Beverly Hills, and the store was closing, and I got a bunch of books, and that was one of them, and I was sat in my car, and I was like sleeping in my car that night, and I was going through the pages, and that painting, that line stuck with me, and I wrote it down, and then like a year later, I used it for the song and incorporated it. But yeah, thanks for asking about that, because legitimately, I'm very serious. No one has ever asked about the SSX lyrics, which is funny. Not that it's that interesting, but it is kind of interesting that it's a Dali reference. But
what about the horse's drugs line?
I mean, you know, fucking, who knows, man. I mean, yes, like whatever.
Thank you, Wonderland.